I'd like to call a public hearing on the fiscal year 2018-2019 proposed budget to order. Roll call, please, Andy.
Hood.
Here.
Thorstenson.
Here.
Jacobs.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Garner. Balmas. Present. 5 present.
All right, this is a public hearing, and Patrick will take it from here along with Brian.
Yeah, I'll just kick it off. Brian's got a short PowerPoint. So not too much has changed from what we presented. Back in March, we've been working on year-end estimates and fine-tuning numbers for next year. We made up some ground on the year-end estimates and brought the deficit down about $200,000. But lost just a little bit of ground on next year's surplus. I think we had $87,000, the proposed budget. Now we're down to like $40,000 after we took a look at December sales tax numbers coming in and then truing up some other numbers. So Brian's going to run us through some of the changes here, but as I said, in the grand scheme of thing, not too significant. So.
All right, thank you, Pat. Just recap how we got to this point. The strategic plan was updated in 2015. That really lays out spending priorities for the village. In November, we reviewed the multi-year financial forecast. In December, the multi-year capital plan. So that took care of the long-term planning documents. Following that, there was a series of departmental and individual trustee meetings to review the draft budget. And then we presented the draft budget at the first workshop on March 5th. Really, that's kind of the third workshop because of the multi-year forecast capital plan. So we've been talking about the budget for a few meetings at that point. And then the public hearing and approval tonight. And then we start the fiscal year May 1st. And following that, we'll have quarterly financial status updates, and then the fiscal year will end with the presentation of the comprehensive annual financial report in October. We made some minor changes, as Pat mentioned, since the 5th on the revenue side in the general fund. We did one structural update, no number changes. We moved revenue-related dispatch contracts under the communications division. Properly aligns the cost center with the charge for service. Before that, they were under police and fire. The road and bridge final levy came in, so we reduced that $11,000. We reduced sales tax based on the recent numbers that we saw there by $110,000. On the expenditure side, as Pat mentioned, we trued up the MICA property liability work comp insurance charges, which reduced the general fund $72,000. And then the final number for the TASER contract, we trued that up, so that saved us $1,300 on next year's budget. In the capital fund, no change in budget figures, just a shift in purpose here. The fire department's moving forward with the EMS software that's subscription-based or cloud-based. We also had in the budget a one-time capital charge for that. We'd like to shift that to an encrypted file transfer software that IS was looking at. So keep the same amount of budgeted dollars, and then just change the purpose from EMS software to this encrypted file transfer software. The water and sewer fund, $10,000 to the good here after everything was done. Truing up MICA, again, saved us $15,000 here, and then we added $4,500 for mobile data service that was omitted out of the original draft budget. Looking at revenues across all funds, transfers total, all funds including transfers, total $76.7 million. That's up 9.2% versus last year. Increases primarily in the general, water, and sewer and pension funds. Looking at the breakdown between categories, taxes makes up the largest category of revenues at 43.9%. This includes major general fund revenues like sales tax, hotel resort tax, amusement taxes, food and beverage, things like that. Charges for service is just over 20% of all revenues. This is primarily water and sewer and fire and dispatch charges. Investments and contributions account for just over 15%. This includes the village's contribution to the police and fire pension funds, as well as investment income in the general fund, water and sewer fund, primarily, and in the pension funds is the biggest numbers there. Other financing sources makes up just under 10% of all revenues. This includes the revenue side of interfund transfers to debt service and capital, as well as the $4 million IEPA loan that's anticipated for next year. So that's included in that category. Intergovernmental revenues makes up about 6% of all revenues, primarily made up of income tax and motor fuel taxes. We also have, for the second year, the reimbursement from the joint ETSB in here as well. So when the village makes a purchase 911 related, we seek reimbursement from the JETSB. Fines and forfeitures make up only 3% of the total budget, and this is where we see the red light enforcement and then police and code enforcement fines in that category. And then finally, licenses and permits, 1.9% of all revenues, and that includes the building permits and business liquor license are the big ones there. Expenditure side, across all funds here, 70 million in total. That's up 6% overall. Largest category of expenditures related to personnel with salaries and wages and employee benefits. That accounts for about 54% of all expenditures. Again, salaries, health insurance, work comp insurance, contributions to the pension funds, police and fire pension funds, and IMRF included in there. Capital is just under 13% of all expenditures. Big one there is the Knowles Road Tower and all their water and sewer improvements and things that are included in the capital plan. Contractual services account for about 12.7%. This includes the street resurfacing contract and the water purchase from Central Lake County Joint Action Water Agency. That's included in that category. Other financing uses, 10.3%. This includes villages' rebate agreements, most notably with Great Wolf, transfers out to other funds, the Aquatic Center debt payment here, and then for the first time, the Reserve for Economic Development of $300,000 in the general fund this year. Remaining categories are roughly 10%. These include items such as property liability insurance, debt service payments, fuel, snow and ice control materials, utilities, professional services, in those last remaining categories. Personnel across all departments is flat from last year at 223.62 FTEs. That's made up of 215 full-time positions and 8.62 part-time FTEs. Some movement within that FTE count includes the addition of a police officer, eliminating the vacant deputy chief position and vacant part-time admin secretary in fire department. Also the addition of a management analyst in the fire department. The elimination of a vacant part-time general office secretary in administration. 86% of all employees are related to either public safety or public works, 7% in community development, and then or community development engineering, and 6% general administration there. So, debt service included in the proposed budget totals just over 1.2 million. That includes debt service on the Series 2011 bonds, which expire in fiscal year 23. And then the special service area number 2, that's the Hickory Haven bonds. Those expire in fiscal year 21. Also, we do contribute to the Park District bonds for the Aquatic Center through an intergovernmental agreement, but that's paid out of the general fund and is not considered village debt because it's not in the name of the village, it's in the name of the Park District. Capital program totals 11.7 million, consists of 3.2 on the transportation system, 5.6 million on a water and sewer system, including the Knowles Road Tower here, anticipated at $4 million this year. 1.6 million on vehicles and equipment. This includes a number of technology initiatives. About 800,000 on buildings and building improvements. Most notably here is the roofs at Village Hall and Fire Station 1. That's long overdue. I won't say that too loud. 473,000 on stormwater management. Then the capital budget is detailed in section 7 of the budget document. So there's a lot of detail in that section on what we're doing from a capital standpoint. This chart shows fund balances by fund. I just want to point out a few things here. We started fiscal year 18 with a general fund balance of just over 26 million. We anticipate a year-end deficit of just over 130,000. If you remember, we budgeted the deficit at 870,000, so significantly better than where we thought we would be. And again, kudos to the departments for really looking at those year-end estimates. Add to that the anticipated surplus in fiscal year 19 of 40,000, as Pat mentioned, and the fund balance remains essentially flat from the beginning of fiscal year 18 to the end of fiscal year 19. As a percentage of expenditures, the balance is over 60%, which far exceeds the village policy of 35%, so we're in a strong position from a fund balance standpoint. The motor fuel tax fund balance here increases to just over $1 million, and as we had talked about throughout the process of utilizing these every other year to be more efficient on how we use staff time to do record keeping and paperwork. Village is utilizing 400,000 of impact fee fund reserves this year to offset some stormwater management program. Balance is projected to finish the year still at 1.2, so we still have some money there. Capital fund balance is drawn down to 680,000. We'd like to see this stay around $1 million. And remember that we weren't able to make the transfer here as we anticipate in the long-term plans this year, but I think we'll be able to get back up there next year. So don't see a huge red flag here. Water and sewer fund balance, 4.7 million. This is right at 50% of expenditures, so a pretty healthy fund balance for water and sewer funds. Looking specifically just at the general fund for a couple slides here. Now, this is the village's main operating fund. Revenues total 42.3 million. That's up 8.7% from last year. This increase primarily in the taxes category. This is the addition of the Great Wolf coming back online, and then adjustments made to the hotel and amusement taxes. That's offset by the reduction in sales tax. As we mentioned earlier, we brought that year-end estimate down another 100, or next year's estimate down another 110,000 from the previous budget figure. Charges for service up 5.8. This is due to the full year of the Zion dispatch contract. Last year we only had 10 months, and then other contractual increases for dispatch and fire services. Expenditures in the general fund, 42.3 million, an increase of 6.2% from last year. Obviously, personnel costs make up the majority of salaries, with salaries and benefits accounting for 75% of the general fund. But I'd like to point out the budget includes only a 1% increase in salaries, so we did a great job managing staff movements within that budget, and 2.4% increase in benefits. We didn't see as large of a health insurance or obviously IMRF bump or police and fire pension bump as we did in previous years. So that helped us keep those figures down. Other financing uses accounts for the largest increase, and this is where we see the rebate with Great Wolf Lodge come back online here. Again, just to add on what I was talking about earlier about the general fund balance, this chart shows it since fiscal year 2009, and you can see the last three bars on the far right there stays pretty flat from the end of fiscal year 17 to the end of fiscal year 19. Just in conclusion, we see major impacts to major revenues. We've seen the state take 2% of home rule sales tax this year, also 10% of income tax, in addition to just impacts to the sales tax from changing consumer habits, online shopping, changes in community demographics, and I guess really we should call it online buying. As we heard from representatives from Gurnee Mills at the last meeting, foot traffic is still there. It's just folks still want to go and see what they're going to physically buy. They just may not buy it in the store. So until we can see some legislation there, that seems to be like a trend that will continue. And then community demographics. Fewer younger families that spend the majority of their household budget will definitely have an impact on that kind of built-in sales tax base in the community here. We are well positioned. We do have experienced attractions and strong food and beverage base. So that's the reduction in sales tax or the trend in sales tax is offset by that. One of the adjustments we made this year was increasing the hotel and amusement tax rates. We haven't touched those in a while. So that helped us balance the budget and offset some of that impact from sales tax. Great Wolf opens this year, which is huge. It'll certainly be huge to bring additional foot traffic as well as that revenue source back to the community. And with all that, we're still able to maintain healthy reserve levels, even through the temporary closure of that main attraction. And that has allowed the village to really, 18th year, no property tax. We're able to do that for one more year, continue infrastructure spending, and reduce our debt position. So all in all, a pretty good story. That pretty much wraps up the presentation. Budget's on the regular agenda for consideration tonight. Fiscal year will start May 1st. I just want to say thanks to the departments for all the work they do in getting the budget together and getting it into the new software. Mayor, village board, village administrator, the solid direction from you guys helps budgeting, makes it much easier for staff. So thank you, and happy to take any questions.
All right, your last chance to ask questions on the budget or tweak it if you must. We will vote on it, and it will become the Bible, May 1st. Questions? Do I have a consensus that this is the budget we want to?
Just make sure you open it to public.
Oh, it's a public hearing. So would anybody from the public like to comment on our budget? Anything in the $72 million you want to change? All right. General consensus, everybody's good with? All right, then if there's no questions, we have a general consensus, then I could call for adjournment, right?
You should take a motion.
Motion.
Oh, all right,
Make a
so I'll take a
recommendation.
motion to
roll
recommend this
call.
budget to us at the regular meeting. So I have a motion from trustee Jacobs. Second from trustee Thorstensen.
Roll call.
Roll call, please, Andy.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner. Aye. Balmas.
Aye.
6-0.
All right, we are sending ourselves a recommendation. So do I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing? Motion by trustee Jacobs,
Second.
second by trustee Thorstensen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing's adjourned and the regular meeting starts in just about 5 minutes.
Not going to leave the